Coolen and Dr. Jack Crabtree. Both are doctors, excuse me. And so tonight we'll begin with a little history of the club. The first Socratic Club was formed in 1941 at Oxford University by C.S. Lewis in order to provide an open forum for the discussion of the intellectual difficulties connected with religion and with Christianity in particular. And our club here at OSU was founded in 2001 with the help of our advisor, Dr. Gary Kernman, somewhere in the audience here. We have sister clubs at Gonzaga, at Michigan, and at Vanderbilt universities, and there should be some more popping up around. So anyhow, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Jack Crabtree. He is a tutor at Gutenberg College in Eugene, which is a great books curriculum college like St. John's, and he holds a PhD in philosophy from the University of Oregon. His latest book is The Most Real Being, a Biblical and Philosophical Defense of Divine Determinism, published in 2004. So, would you like to come up and give us your point of view here?
If you missed, there are some handouts here of the notes that I'm going to be using if you missed those. The question tonight is belief in God rational? It's not, is belief in God fun, or is belief in God cool? Those probably wouldn't be as interesting to you. And it seems to me that the reason that the question is belief in God rational is at all interesting is because implicit in the very question is sort of a challenge to the theist. And as I understand the challenge to the theist, it is, if you don't have the right kind of arguments, the right kind of reasoning, the right kind of evidence to ground your belief, then you really have no right to hold it. You might even be immoral to hold it. So you better have the right sort of evidence and the right sort of arguments.
Sir, would you put the microphone closer to your mouth?
Closer to my mouth?
Yeah.
Is there any way to... Is that better? Okay. There. Now the problem is that for theists, typically we get sort of insecure when we're confronted with that challenge or confronted with that question. And there's three reasons I think we feel insecure, and those are like the three facts about my belief in the existence of God on your outline there. First of all, I know that I can't articulate reasons and outline evidence for my belief in the existence of God, not any that are even going to be satisfying to me. And I know that. If you were to ask me why do you believe in the existence of God, and I begin to trot out my reasons, I begin to feel uncomfortable because I don't think they sound like very good reasons. So that's a fact, and I think any theist confronts that reality and confronts that fact. Second one is, I know that I can articulate reasons and outline evidence for my belief in the existence of God that wouldn't convince my atheist friends. So I feel all the more insecure. Not only do they seem hollow and unconvincing to me, but they certainly don't sound like they would convince my atheist friends. And then thirdly, any reasons that I believe I do have for believing in the existence of God don't seem to result in certainty with regard to my belief in God. That is, they don't remove all doubt for me. There seems to be room for doubt. There's no certainty there. So, the resulting insecurity about my belief in the existence of God, I would argue, results from my acceptance implicitly, tacitly. I have accepted three criteria. One, that my belief in the existence of God is not rational unless I can articulate reasons and evidence for it. Two, it's not rational unless that evidence is compelling to everybody. And three, my belief is not rational unless it results in certainty in my belief for me. Well, my contention in the few minutes I have here is to challenge all three of those criteria. I believe those are not legitimate criteria. A belief can be rational and not measure up to those standards. But in order to understand that, we need to kind of look at human rationality itself. So I'm going to make some observations about what I think is a legitimate and sound and accurate understanding of human rationality. And that's the second section of my notes here. My first point is to just define human rationality from my perspective. Human rationality is our ability to competently construct a picture of reality that matches matches the way things are. And it's difficult to define it beyond that, because rationality, I would argue, is continually discovering itself and continually coming to know itself better and know its power and know its resources. We learn what rationality is by the resulting contact with reality, intellectual contact with reality that my rationality brings me. So in order for a belief to be rational, I would argue that it needs to be intellectually competent on the one hand, and it needs to be something that I believe because I am open to truth. I should bring in my second point at that point. Rationality does not necessarily dictate what we believe and embrace as true. As human beings, rationality is not always the basis upon which we believe what we believe. Fear, desire, passions of various kinds can lead us to embrace beliefs that we don't believe because rationality, such as it is, has led me to want to embrace that belief. It's other aspects of my humanity that are at play. And other elements of human experience can on occasion trump rationality when it comes to the decision of what we believe. So when I call a belief rational, what I mean by that is there's a measure of competence, intellectual competence involved in it, coupled with an openness to truth. I'm believing it because I believe I have made contact with reality and for no other reason. Third observation, reasoning involves making intelligent judgments. It is not a technique that can be mechanized or even specified. I'm leaning very heavily on Michael Polanyi for this point. In fact, for the rest of my points in this, I've been greatly influenced by Polanyi. We have a tendency since the Enlightenment to think that we can specify ahead of time how it is, what technique you use, what algorithm you use, what method that you use in order to guarantee that your beliefs are true, or at least guarantee that they're rational. And I would argue that that's a mistaken notion of human rationality. Human rationality are the resources of human intelligence to be able to take in all the data of our experience, all the data of nature, all the data of the world, and somehow solve the problems and answer the questions that emerge for myself. And I can't specify ahead of time how I'm going to solve that problem, how I'm going to answer that question, how I'm going to make my discovery. I only know I've made the discovery when I discover it. I only know that I've made contact with reality when I make contact with reality, when I know what I know, when I have come to understand what I have come to understand. As I say here, the discovery of truth is an act of problem solving, but if I already knew how to solve the problem, it wouldn't be a problem. So all of rationality, all of intellectual discovery, I would say, is on that order. I'm looking for truth. I'm groping for truth. I'm grasping for truth. And I don't know how to get there until I get there. And that's the goal of human rationality, is to find out how to do that. Fourth point, judging a belief or a piece of reasoning to be rational is ultimately an act of self-appraisal. This is sort of a corollary to the last one. I'm the one who knows that I have discovered what I have discovered. I'm the one who knows that I know what I know. Sometimes I can demonstrate that I have knowledge through performance. A 10-year-old boy riding a bicycle knows the laws of physics, the laws of angular momentum and whatnot, that he knows in order to keep his balance as he rides a bicycle down the street. He couldn't articulate that to you, but I know that he knows it because I see him riding and staying upright. So at some level, his knowing how is ultimately rooted in his knowing that. And there's something that he knows, even though he could not articulate what it is that he knows. Which brings me to the fifth point. We are not always able to articulate what we genuinely apprehend with our reason. Polanyi uses skills primarily to illustrate this point. Anytime that we learn a skill, we have to teach ourselves what it is that we need to know to be able to practice the skill. No master craftsman can give a lecture to the apprentice and then have the apprentice, on the basis of that lecture, go out and replicate the skill. A skill is self-taught. A skill is self-learned. All all the master craftsman can do is say, that's it, look at that. A doctor teaching an intern how to hear a defect in the heart puts the stethoscope on the heart and tells the intern, listen, that sounds good. That's a good sounding heart. And another one, that's bad. There's something wrong here. But the intern has to teach himself or herself what it is that he or she is hearing. The master cannot do that. The doctor cannot do that. There's so much of knowledge that is on that order. We can know it without being able to articulate what it is that we know. And then finally, I would say that certainty is not a necessary